can. We've got MP3 players coming out, MP3 controllers. You can download music off the net. You can use visual software to enhance what you're doing on the decks. I mean, it really is a whole world of technology out there. You know, there's more DJs using live music in their sets. So they're actually using samplers and drum machines as part of their sets, going out on the road with that. Clubs, you know, the next thing in clubs is big visual systems in their rooms. So you've got actually visuals being generated by the DJ, so the sound that's coming from the decks is actually translating into visuals that are being beamed all around the club. So it's a very exciting time to be a DJ, and you know, there's lots more to come.
So why is it got to be so damn tough?
Scratching. We've all seen it, we've all been impressed by it, but does it really have a place in a programme such as this? One of the hardest parts of DJing to master, scratching has shaped itself into its own unique art form. But to dismiss scratching offhand as being no value to the average DJ is making a mistake. Even the most basic of scratch moves can be worked with great effect into any DJ's mixing skills. Award-winning scratch DJ Taz is here to put me in my place. I'm here with Taz, and Taz is going to talk to us about scratching. First thing I'm noticing, Taz, is the setup's totally different here.
Yeah, the first thing you might notice is that the turntables are turned around 90 degrees in order the arms at the top. That's simply to ensure that they're out of the way. When you're scratching, you're moving your hands around a lot. And in a normal position, the arms can be in the way and you could knock them off, so it's simply to get the arms out of the way.
Right, okay. And what about the actual equipment themselves? Is there any major differences?
The major differences are the type of mixer and the styluses. You need a mixer with loose faders, although it's not imperative, it helps, especially with the more complicated scratches. You need crossfader with a good cut in as well. This enables you to cut the sound on and off quickly to give you sharp cuts. Another thing you might notice is the styluses and cartridges. You need styluses that are heavy duty and that stay in the groove because you don't want them to jump, it's as simple as that. These needles are short, M44, designed for scratching insofar as they track the groove very well and they won't move from side to side, and you don't need to put too much weight on these cartridges to keep them in the groove. Another thing is, or are, the slip mats. You might want to use something slidey underneath your slip mats just to give you an extra...
So it's just like a bit of plastic?
Yeah, or greaseproof paper, whatever.
Okay.
Wherever you can muster, or the inside of a record sleeve. Just gives you a bit more movement and makes it a lot lighter to pull back. That's about it. Apart from stickers, when you start getting onto the vinyl, in order that you can cue your records up quickly without the use of headphones, the idea is that you put the sticker at an angle, and when you push the sticker against the stylus, it will drop into the groove at the correct point. So this should say fresh.
That's a wicked track.
Which it does. And also, you need to make sure that the hole in the record isn't too big. Most pieces of vinyl are pressed up with a hole that's quite slack around the spindle.
Right.
And you want to ensure that that's as tight as possible without hindering the movement of the vinyl.
Okay, so...
This gives the needle, you know, it's more stable because the record isn't wobbling around when you're scratching.
So how would you make that tighter? Just by putting stickers around the edge?
Yeah, what I've done there is put a sticker through it, folded it over. It stops it from moving about so much. You also might want to sticker up reference points on the record so you know what you're scratching. A good way to do it is to direct it towards the stylus at the beginning of the sound. So, for example, this one where it says fresh, you can see the sticker points at the stylus. So you always know where it is all the time.
So now I'm an equipment genius. Can you explain to me a bit about the basics of scratching?
I can show you a few scratches and how they're done.
Okay.
The first thing to learn is the baby scratch. Now this involves moving the record backwards and forwards without using the crossfader. It's the most important scratch because it forms the basis of all others.
Okay.
So in this example, when you've mastered that, you can progress on to using the fader. First thing you might want to try doing is cutting. This involves cutting the back scratch out, so you just get the forward noise. Instead of, you just get.
Oh, it's much tighter sound.
Exactly.
Right.
Once you've mastered that, you may want to try transforming, which involves cutting the sound out throughout its course rather than just at the beginning.
Okay.
So, you also may want to try chops, which involve chopping the sound at the beginning and the end. So instead of, you get. You just sharpen it up by using that motion, cutting it at the beginning and the end of the process. Okay, so we've covered some basic scratches.
Yeah.
It's important to know what it actually sounds like over a beat. So I'm just going to show you the baby scratch, transform, cutting and chopping over this beat.
Okay.
First of all, baby scratch. And then we're going to chop it, cut it. Transform. Chop it.
Taz, can you run through a few more advanced scratches?
You might want to move on to some more complicated scratches now. The scratches I'm about to show you are based on the principle that you turn the sound off instead of turning it on.
Okay.
The scratches I've showed you so far, we've been turning the sound on with the crossfader, and this is a flare. This involves turning the sound off instead of turning it on. So whereas before we've been going, and it's concentrated on turning the sound on from the off position, we're now going to concentrate on turning the sound off. So for example, for a flare scratch, this means that you can get you can chop the sound more often for less hand movement. So for example, I'm only moving the crossfader once each time,
Yeah.
forward and backwards, but I'm chopping the sound in half, getting two noises forward and back.
You're getting more for your effort level there.
More for your money. The flare scratch will take you a long time to master because it involves a different level of coordination as far as you're turning the sound off instead of turning it on, as we discussed earlier.
Okay.
Moving along from that, you might want to do a double click flare, which involves doing it twice forwards and twice backwards. Once forward and backwards,
Yeah.
you might want to do it twice. So
Okay, now that's a whole different hand movement.
it's quicker, but
Yeah.
it's the same in principle insofar as you're starting from the on position and turning it off. You're just doing it twice instead of.
Speedy.
And that develops into an orbit, which is a more continuous sound movement. You can also use your two fingers to move the crossfader, like so.
And that's just because it's quicker to do.
Yeah, and it's also less tiring instead of moving your wrist really fast like that.
So it's fairly simple with that hand, but
Exactly.
take some practice
It's
for
a
this one.
basic baby scratch, you're just doing that. But you're cutting it up with this hand.
Okay.
You might want to try the crab scratch after that, which
Right.
again is the same, but this time you use three fingers to cut the sound out 3 times. So you actually get 4 noises.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, that's brilliant.
Okay, now this is what it can sound like over some music, over an instrumental. Baby scratching, cutting, transforming, flare, double click, and then the orbit.